The motion has been proposed by Councillor Smith as set out in the agenda. So I now call upon Councillor Smith to speak in favour of this motion. You have 5 minutes, Councillor.
I present a motion rooted in faith, peace, justice and preservation. As we speak, one of the greatest horrors of our time is unfolding in Gaza. The people of Palestine continue to endure unimaginable suffering, violence, displacement and a relentless campaign against their very existence. To understand the urgency, we must first acknowledge the history. Palestine is home to a rich heritage spanning thousands of years, and we are witnessing its systematic destruction. Checkpoints that humiliate, an apartheid regime designed to divide and dominate, escalating settler violence, mass land grabs, the demolition of homes and the brutal mistreatment of prisoners. Credible reports have exposed sexual violence, the targeting of journalists, and the deliberate erasure of a culture and community. We're not dealing with vague claims, we're witnessing a live stream genocide. Despite the best efforts to silence the truth, the evidence grows daily, often from recordings made by IDF soldiers. And now a new chapter in this unfolding nightmare, the next step in the Zionist regime's attempts to ethnically cleanse Palestine. The Israeli government has announced plans to forcibly transfer over 500,000 Palestinians, many of whom are already displaced to the so-called safe zone of Al-Mawasi, into a tightly controlled encampment built on the ruins of Rafah. This is not a humanitarian city, it is by all means a concentration camp. Under this proposal, Palestinians would be fenced in, their movements restricted, their lives monitored and controlled. It is a prison without walls, a modern-day ghetto. Legal experts, humanitarian groups and even the Israeli army reservists have called it what it is: a war crime, and a direct continuation of the project to erase the Palestinian people from their own land. The Palestinians themselves have made their voice clear with this quote: "They want to trap us behind fences, cut us off from the world, and then push us to leave. This is not safety, this is removal." We must ask ourselves, when the dust settles, will we have done enough? Will we be able to say that we stood up, even when it was difficult? Or will we, like generations before us, say that we saw the signs and still we did nothing? We all remember the haunting images from the Holocaust, the rise and fall of the Nazi regime, and we ask how the world stood by. I say to you now, don't look away. Don't let history repeat itself on our watch. Let never again mean never again. This motion may seem small to some, but it carries weight. It calls for a cessation of arms sales to Israel, an immediate release of hostages, and recognition of the powerful connection and friendship between Hastings and Al-Mawasi. Despite devastation, Al-Mawasi endures. Battered yet broken, this narrow 1 kilometre wide, 14 kilometre long coastal town was once a flourishing fishing and farming community, renowned for its sweet groundwater, sandy dunes, rich biodiversity of birds and amphibians, and fertile fields, nicknamed a basket of food for Gaza. Olive groves, date palms and vegetable plots once thrived here in harmony with the sea. In December 2023, Israeli authorities designated Al-Mawasi a safe zone, urging Palestinians to relocate there. The logic: Hamas was reportedly not present in the area, yet this supposed sanctuary has been relentlessly bombed. Airstrikes have repeatedly shattered the myths of safety, leaving tents and tarp shacks to appear across the ruptured earth and dried up farmland. Still from this oasis, resilience and hope burns bright. Hastings residents, moved by compassion, have built a deep friendship with Grassroots Resilience Committee in Al-Mawasi, who established a self-built community centre known as the Safe Space. This space, once used for education, health and awareness and women's empowerment projects, now shelters displaced families. Through regular Zoom calls and WhatsApp chats, we've supported them directly, raising funds for solar panels, for water access, a bakery, food parcels and educational resources. From one coastal town to another, we've shown that solidarity, dignity and human connection shine brighter than cruelty. Al-Mawasi, like Hastings, is defined not just by its land, but by the resilience of its people. They survive, endure and beckon us to witness their struggle and their strength. Respected councillors, I ask you to stand with our Palestinian and our Jewish residents and all those that oppose the horrors of genocide. Hastings Borough Council is a borough of sanctuary. That means something. It means that we strive for a better community. It means that we stand with the oppressed, whoever they are, wherever they are. And in this case, let's be absolutely clear. The occupation is the oppressor. The occupied are the oppressed. Be bold, be brave, stand with Palestine, stand for justice, stand on the right side of history. Free Palestine.
In 1939, when my 1-year-old mother, Sabina, arrived with her sisters Monica and Renata and their parents, Max and Erica, into the welcoming arms of Sydney Harbour. They'd been on the run for 7 weeks, having been tipped off that the SS were coming for them. Max's parents and many of his relatives subsequently died in Auschwitz and Theresienstadt. Having been welcomed to Sydney by Quakers, they subsequently became Quakers themselves. And my beloved Uma and Upa and my mother Sabina tried to teach me the lessons they'd learned about tyranny, about injustice, about inequality, about war. They made me learn to be very afraid of people who value one group above another. And following directly from that, they taught me to recognise genocide when I saw it and to value those people who stood against it regardless of personal consequence. Israel's deliberate starving and bombing of tens of thousands of Palestinian men, women and children is no more justified by the events of the 7th of October than Hamas's kidnapping and killing of innocent Israeli civilians was justified by decades of violence and occupation of Palestine by Israel. Those of our fellow citizens who in timidity, fear or anger conspire with the continuation of a genocide either through silence or indifference or legalistic quibbles will be judged by history just as surely as the old men who are perpetrating this violence and bringing shame to their ancestors and danger to all Jewish people across the globe, including my beloved wife and children. I second this motion tonight to stand with our local Jewish and Muslim communities against the misunderstandings and hatred that they face. I second it as well to stand with my ancestors, and I strongly ask you to find within yourself your humanity and join Yunis and me in supporting this very important motion.
For over a year now, we've been trying to just have conversation, debate in the chamber about this really, really important issue. If more councils had been brave enough or enabled enough to put their voices forward, I think that we would have seen a change in the government's way of thinking. Now, I work every day with young people, 16 to 18-year-olds. Many of them come from war-torn countries, and a few of them have come from Palestine. And over the last year, I've had the pleasure and the sorrow to sit with them and talk about their families and talk about the worry they have for their relatives and what's happening to their country. Then I have to report back that this council is not able to even just talk about it. These people are residents of our town and they need to be heard and they need to be supported. We must, as councillors, as representatives of the town, make sure their voices are heard at the highest level of this council and then push that to government as well. And I will be wholeheartedly supporting this motion.
I want to bring people back to the impulse behind this motion, which I think is a heartfelt call to end the suffering of all peoples affected by this conflict, whatever their faith, and a gesture to make contact between different communities so we get to know each other as human beings, not just as people. If anyone read the description of the reaching out between people here and Al-Mawasi people, then I can't see how anyone can see that as divisive. But also remind people, if they think this chamber is not relevant, that actually there was a friendship link created with Sierra Leone many years ago, and that arose out of the Civil War. I will be voting for this motion.
I wanted to say, and I feel like I should for the residents in Trestle who actually reached out to me more on this subject than I probably have ever had emails from Trestle residents since being the councillor. This is important to show all Hastings residents that we are going to be wanting peace and harmony between everybody in Hastings. We are a town of sanctuary after all, which we need to be remembering. In regards to the Friends of Al-Mawasi though, if anyone had actually gone to the St Leonard's Festival, they had a stall there and you could have had a really great conversation with them and actually got all of these questions that you have tonight answered. They also sent us round, all councillors, a really helpful factual sheet that actually explained heavily all these questions that you have as well that you've answered today. We also, because we're in 2025, have a thing called Google, so we could have also researched this ourselves as well. As the Trestle Ward Councillor, I will be supporting this motion because that's what the residents of my area would like to do. And I call all councillors here to be supporting this motion and helping me write to the Prime Minister to call an end to this straight away.
Also remembering today that people who gave their lives to get rid of things like fascism and everything that happened in the Holocaust. People like my grandfather died. My father that fought in the war and so forth. These people turn over in the graves if they saw what was happening in Israel. And I think it's the very least we can do today is to stand up to be counted. That's what this is about. The British government have only not been complicit in sending components for F-35. They've been actively involved in flight reconnaissance missions over Gaza so they can see what's going on. But also they've been proactive in shooting down any missiles or anything while Israel can protect their neighbours with impunity. Don't they have a right to self-defence? Let's not play around with semantics. Either you believe it's disgraceful or it isn't. We should be supporting this motion because we care.
Keir Starmer has commented, as Councillor Turner said, that Israel's actions in Gaza are appalling and intolerable. Unfortunately, his government's actions do not match his rhetoric. I would ask him, are these actions so appalling and intolerable that we withdraw military support for Israel? No is the answer. The RAF continues to fly reconnaissance missions for Israel from their base in Cyprus. Are these actions so appalling and intolerable that the UK has banned all arms sales to Israel? No, the UK continues to license arms sales sales to Israel, including components for the F-35 fighter jets used to bomb Gaza. Are these actions so appalling and intolerable that the UK government is pressing for the return of aid distribution in Gaza to the UN? Yet again, the answer is no. They stood idly by while the delivery of essential aid has been outsourced to a US Israeli-backed foundation. The latter had engineered scarcity, and the system has collapsed into chaos and further slaughter. Again, don't take my word for this. The head of the International Committee of the Red Cross said the situation is worse than hell on earth. Remember, Sir Keir Starmer is a human rights lawyer, and yet he continues to fail to act. What is wrong with this government? Their priorities seem so skewed. They are overseeing a state of affairs where 83-year-olds are being arrested for banner waving. In Hastings, we see the spectacle of a peaceful protester being arrested for chalking a slogan on the road. Which brings me to General Dynamics, who have a site in Hastings where that protest took place. I would urge this council to take note of the local campaign investigating whether General Dynamics lease should be withdrawn based on their alleged complicity with arms sales to Israel. Over 70,000 civilians have been killed, 1.9 million displaced, and during this debate, Palestinian children will be killed. So it's entirely right we have this motion before us today, calling for a ceasefire and a return of all hostages. It's entirely right that we should pressurise the UK government to cease all arms sales to Israel and resolve the humanitarian crisis. And it's right that we recognise and support the existing friendship link between Hastings and Al-Mawasi. We've all seen the pictures, we've all heard the heart-rending stories. I would urge all councillors to vote with their conscience this evening.
Civilians in Gaza now face renewed bombardment, new displacement and new suffering, and the remaining hostages are at heightened risk from the war around them. This is a hugely sensitive and deeply complex issue. With its focus on issues of international politics, this motion goes way beyond the remit of local council. Motions, and I quote, must be about matters for which the council has statutory powers, duties or functions, or address the build of natural environment of the borough of Hastings, or address a matter of local, regional or national policy. This motion should not, therefore, have been brought forward.
Of course, your heart goes out to the people of Gaza, just the same as it went out to the people of Israel when the villages were invaded and people killed and hostages taken then. I just don't think it's right that we should be sitting here debating this in this council. I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
He did mention Hamas. They are a violent extremist organisation embedded within Gaza. I have the utmost sympathy for the people of Palestine. I just wonder why they allow Hamas to rule their lives like that. Hamas have one sole objective in life, and that is the obliteration of Israel. That is genocide. So all you could say what's happening is that Israel is getting its retaliation in first. And who can blame them if there are rockets aimed at them from them?
Saying things are untrue.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I just finish?
Councillor Edwards, please can you stick to the motion that's in front of us?
This is not truly about Al-Mawasi, it is about taking a side. I'm not convinced that we should. This is not a repressive. Our vote will be widely ignored. More profoundly, I cannot find it in myself to prefer one side rather than the other. I'm aware that this will disappoint many whose good opinion I value, but I shall abstain.
The motion calls for many things, which I wholeheartedly support, such as calling for a permanent and immediate ceasefire, of course, and return of all hostages. Of course, the public backing of the UN plan regarding humanitarian aid and reconstruction. But sadly, despite what Councillor Smith has now said publicly regarding supporting the people of Israel, it's not in motion, and that is my problem. And having just gone through Pride Month in June, the unbelievable increase in stress members of the LGBT community is simply mind-blowing. People are not just scared of being bombed or shot, but actually terrified of being able to be who they are and be discovered. Because of that, and because of all this, that I will be abstaining this evening.
I'm afraid it is divisive. You're favouring one side rather than another, and I cannot vote.
One thing I've realised sitting here today is we do actually share one thing, no matter what side you're sitting on, and that is humanity and compassion. And you know what? I think that deserves a round of applause, because we're all here because we believe in humanity and compassion. I think that really deserves celebrating. I fully support the call for a permanent ceasefire and return of all hostages. That's not in question at all. So you might want to wonder why I'm going to be abstaining. Well, I'm abstaining because I believe the motion, while really heartfelt, it asks the council to take a position on a really high, complex and international issue that stretches beyond our local mandate and our capacity. We've just got to remember that we're not the United Nations, we're the Council of Hastings.
I just firmly believe that this is not my place to take sides on such a complex, international issue where there will always be two sides to the story.
I can't vote for this motion because it's not balanced. I was elected as a Hastings Council, and believe it or not, I've had nothing from any of my residents about this. Not a single email. I want Gaza to be free. I think it's disgusting what's going on, and I'm angry that this has been so badly worded in places that I can't vote for it.
I speak from the heart. I don't understand. You're asking to support councillors to promote the friendship link within the town with Hastings Friends of Al-Mawasi. Well, that's a region that's controlled by the mess. And I just don't think legally we can do that.
Thank you to you all who have taken part in this. We're now going to take a vote. So I should like to see all those in favour of passing this motion. Please raise your hand. All those against the motion, please raise your hands. And all those who are abstaining tonight, please raise your hands. The motion is carried.